Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too, with the dignity that they deserve. And, I treat people with dignity because they treat me with dignity. I have about 300 people who come to People of Distinction every year, and it goes out with one of the biggest, most dignified areas of the internet, and one of the biggest companies around airing CBS radio shows. And that's Apple's iTunes Radio Network. Under their professional news talk division, Apple airs CBS radio shows and BBC, Fox News, NPR, everything, the whole kit and caboodle, C-SPAN as well. So it goes out to, oodles and oodles of listeners. And I also have my People of Distinction Humanitarian Awards events. They're national events in New York City, Capitol Hill with members of the U.S. Congress, and also Florida and Atlanta. And I've honored over 100 national and international unsung heroes. I have my alliances with Ariana Huffington, the formulator and founder of the Huffington Post, and her Thrive Global Network as well, drawing millions. So hey, we get around here with Al Cole from CBS Radio. And if you want to get around to going to my website, it's peopleofdistinction.org. That's peopleofdistinction.org. And you're going to love what you see there and hear there. You can hear my radio streams, broadcasting streams, everything. And you can email me for anything that you need. Email me at alcoholic at gmail.com. You heard me right. That's ALCOLEHOLIC at gmail.com. And I really want to thank my CBS radio listeners for coming up with that handle, alcoholic. Seems like from day one, my listeners have been saying, Al, we love what you're doing there, brother. In fact, we're hooked on it. We're alcoholics. Love that. Coming up, a lady that you're going to love. Her name, a different sort of name here, Daisy Moret. Yeah, it's a beautiful name. I like that, Daisy Moret. It's kind of like, that walk through the country on a beautiful summer's day and seeing all the wonderful daisies and the way that they grow. Now, see, we're all daisies. I'm going to put it this way. We are all flowers in this beautiful universe of existence. We are love flowers. We were made to love each other and to love life. And that baby within you, everybody comes out a baby. That baby looked around and said, wow, I love life. I'm born. I'm actually alive. Life, thank you for inviting me into this beautiful, beautiful adventure called life. And also, I love it so much that I want to contribute whatever love I can to life and make it better for other people. All right. So that's the way it started out. But then we go into the hard times and society pushing us around and saying, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. And after a while, we lose our way. After a while, it's not like we're loving, but sometimes we're even causing contentiousness, not only in our own lives, but in the societal existence that we're in. And that can cause wars. We know that. There's been World War I, World War II. We're human beings otherwise who want to help each other and love each other. Now they're enemies. They're societal enemies. They're national enemies. And they destroy each other. Why is that, people? Well, maybe Daisy's going to give us some insight into that. She has a great new book out called Matriarch and World War III. Now, I didn't talk about World War III yet because that hasn't happened yet. World War I, World War II, where people who otherwise don't need to be enemies become enemies. And they destroy each other, kill each other. We don't want World War III to happen. However, in Daisy's book, Matriarch and World War III, I'm going to put it my way, an inventive way, so that I want to keep you on the line, you, my listeners, so you can hear Daisy talk about her book. If World War III does happen, then we live in not a matriarch world, but a patriarch world. It'll be men more than women who caused World War III. It'll be men more than women who have put out a lot of contentiousness, and, world leaders are mostly men. and political leaders, social leaders. They're mostly men, corporate leaders. And maybe they did it for money purposes. Yeah, maybe for gain that way. So World War III, maybe we can prevent that through raising women empowerment, helping women to get out there in leadership positions where their beautiful love energy shines through. You know, maybe that beautiful feminine energy. We need more of that. That nurturing energy in our society. Maybe that's what Daisy's talking about when she talks about matriarch. Yeah. So we need the matriarchs out there, the women leaders, and we know that more and more. In order to avoid maybe World War III, let's see what Daisy says about this in her book, Matriarch and World War III. It's a gripping book, and I want you to order that book. It's available on Amazon. And also, I want you to run to this website too. This is the publisher that introduced me to Daisy. It's UR-Link Publishing. And I want you to go to their website. If you got a book out that you want to move, maybe a number of books that you want to move, they offer some of the great services in book publishing, plus that personal approach where they can really help you move a book your way. Go to urlinkpublishing.com. Welcome, Daisy, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. How are you doing today?
Oh, very good, thanks.
Yeah, now we're going to talk about it here. You have written a gripping book, Matriarch and World War III. Now, I put it down my way in creative, exploratory ways. Now, you tell us what that book is actually about, Matriarch and World War III. What is that book really about, Daisy?
I was one of those people in Melbourne who knew about 9/11 before it happened.
Wow.
My book explains these things. But what I need to point out is that Matriarch and World War III, with the subheading Internal State Terrorism in Australia, that was actually published by Ex Libris. But what I have done is I have written another book, which is 9/11 and the Holy War, 21st Century Style, Answers and Questions. And then this is about the Al Cole radio interview, USA, that we have today. And what I've done in that, I've explained like the interview that that you have, and I've have a lot of quotes from my book. So the most important points and the various questions that might be asked, I've actually spelled out, in this book, 9/11 and the Holy War, and that's with your link, print and media. They will be publishing that one. But my Matriarch and World War III, that's actually published by Ex Libris.
I get it. Now, with what you want to say about your book or books, what are your books about? You mentioned that you knew about 9/11 before 9/11 even occurred. How did you know about that?
Well, I used to sing protest songs at the family court because of what happened in our family. And I was actually going to university at the time when they had all these Nike demonstrations, and they get all the publicity. So I wrote this song, Scrooge McDuck and Civil War. And I had actually been arrested earlier that year because I went to help out the Nike demonstrators, and I would open their protest with my song. And they had been trying for 6 years to get someone arrested so they could force Parliament to change the laws so that people who worked in backyard garages, could receive a decent wage. And they couldn't get anyone arrested. But my song, that was why I was arrested. And the police actually tried to get an order through the magistrate's court to stop me from singing. A QC stepped in and said that would mean I wouldn't be able to speak, so they couldn't do that. But what I had done earlier that year with my song, when they had the May Day marches, that's from Trades Hall, I took the initiative and got in front of the marchers going up Flinders Street with my song. So I was on the television, and I was famous at Trades Hall for my song. And it's because of these two things which I had done that's why I was invited to the top Nike political meetings, which behind that, it wasn't just university students. We're talking about power bodies in the world. And it was there that we were told that there had to be a small demonstration on that anniversary day, which was S11 was the name of that day, in Australia, September the 11th. There had to be a small demonstration or otherwise something big would happen. Now, the situation is that I went to university in the 70s. We had 6 years of protests against the Vietnam War. And I went to the last union meeting about that, and we were told by the International Socialists that another war could not begin until something big happened. So I put 2 and 2 together. And so I said straight away, I said, I don't want anything to do with it. So I actually went in and to one of my sons, so I kept away from everywhere for a few days. But this is how I knew about 9/11 before it happened. Now, I was also a year later, just after the Bali bombing, I was nearly shot dead as a female terrorist. This was because I went to university to apply to do law, and this Chubb security guy stuck his head in my truck. So I drove my truck because I had a car and a truck. I drove that to the uni, and he called the police, and the police come with their guns, hands on your head, open the door and get out, because Chubb security had put in that I was a female terrorist. What I didn't know was that the United Nations meeting convened on the other side of the brick wall, where I'd parked my truck. So what I did after that, I registered the business name Osama Bush Peace Office. I went to university and studied counter-terrorism. And it's because of all of these things, I was involved in. And what happened was there was all this nonsense on television, so that when I came across this nonsense, it's quite upsetting. So I would just write articles. I wrote a lot of poems. Because of all this misinformation, that comes in the news, and then I kept away from the internet for all these years because it was too dangerous for me to be mentioning anything on the internet, because I knew about 9/11 beforehand. It makes me look suspicious. And it wasn't until 2014 I put all my articles and my poems and everything together, and I'd used real names, real places. And it wasn't until Donald Trump came into power that I felt that I would be able to get my book published. So what I did was I have a page on the internet, Osama Bush Peace Office. And anyone who's interested in these things, would read all of it. So I used to get phone calls from all around the world asking me questions, and someone else found me the publishers, which were Exlibrius. So that book has been already published. I've had some difficulties with Exlibrius, but we're working them out.
Mm-hmm.
But then with your link, I was able to get, on your interview, it popped up, I could do this.
Yeah,
exactly. And I thought, it's a good idea. So what I've done is I have written the book, 9/11 and the Holy War, 21st Century Style Answers and Questions, Alcohol Radio Interview USA. Now, my pen name is Daisy Snow. My real name is Marette Field Sally Brown. The thing is that when I was arrested in May Day in 2001, my picture was in the paper, my real name was there. When I was arrested, so when I was arrested, then I say that that's my real name. But the thing is, I couldn't use my real name, when I got my book published, so I had to use my great auntie's name, Daisy Snow. So that's why I'm like Daisy Marette is the best way to, it's the best name to call me.
Yeah, we get it. Now let me jump in here for clarity's sake for my listeners, so we can sharpen it here. Where does World War III come into all of this, Daisy?
Oh, yeah, okay. I did mention that where the International Socialists said another war could not begin until something big happened. Now, these twin towers, look, what I did when I was arrested, I thought, well, I better investigate what's going on, which I did. And what I found was the actual goal of the Nike demonstrators was to down the Twin Towers in America, which is exactly what happened. The Twin Towers being the icon of capitalism. This happened on the worldwide protest day against capitalism. S11 is now called 9/11. Now, what I'm saying in my arguments is that predictions going back to Nostradamus and that World War III is a collection of civil wars all around the world, which is what we have at the present time. I've found, look, what I actually did was after 9/11, well, I thought at the time that Osama bin Laden was a socialist, and I didn't. And so what I did was I went to learn Arabic. I was therefore invited to come to the mosque. I actually sat in a circle of women at the mosque for 9 months, and I did actually convert. I don't go anywhere near the mosques anymore.
Okay, let me jump in again, so to keep it on track for my listeners. World War III, as you already said, is happening right now because World War
Yes.
III is a combination of international skirmishes and battles going on throughout the world. Now, World War III, as we don't know it right now, nobody would actually say we're involved in World War III. However, that makes sense to me. What you're saying, that World War III is happening right now because of all of these skirmishes. How does the matriarch come into what is going on in World War III right now, Daisy?
Yeah, okay. Now, matriarch is a word that's used in Indonesia where people really have very difficult times, and they are waiting for a matriarch. And they've been doing that for a long time to relieve them of all their problems. And so this is where matriarch. Now, myself, I mean, I've got 3 children. My son has got a lot of people who work for him. Um, I more or less fit into, being a matriarch. I have a lot of people come to me for assistance. Um, in my life, when I was 3 years old, my mother taught me how
Well,
to.
let's not go back to that.
Yeah,
Let's move ahead. Matriarch right now with World War III. Let me give
yeah,
an example of that to my listeners. People, now, matriarch generally indicates women who are in the lead in something. World leaders,
yes.
maybe, that are women. Maybe educational leaders that are women. Maybe medical leaders that are women. A lot of doctors now who are women taking the helm. We know that women are known for more compassion, more of that nurturing phase in our human existence. So when you're now putting it back in your arena, Daisy, when you're talking about matriarch in World War III, and you define World War III as happening already beneath our our very noses, with all of the international battles and skirmishes and contention that's going on, matriarch can help that out. Most of this stuff is caused by men, not women. And so if we elected more women leaders or had more women leaders out there in compassionate roles, would that help to lessen the effects of World War III right now?
Um, not exactly that. I mean, it would help, but
Yeah.
however, what I have found personally is that the greatest problem we face is the long-term Cold War military strategies of Islam, and in particular, jihad for women in Islam. Now, whenever in Australia, on television, when Muslims are asked what is the meaning of jihad, and when they're asked, well, what about jihad for women in Islam, they don't answer. But what I've found, and I go back to the year 1096, is that women, uh, they have refugee status and they have to overproduce children. So what they do is and it's a hardship for them, they don't have the freedom that we have even in our own country, they have to have all these children, they've got to bring them up, they have to program them to be mujahideen. One of the books I want to write is the military Koran, because in the Koran there's things about peace, there's things about military. The thing is that if a Muslim wants to go to heaven, and just in explanation, and if he has an opportunity to kill an infidel like you and me and anyone who's not Muslim, if he doesn't do it, he hasn't got a hope of getting through the pearly gates to get into heaven. These things are spelt out in the Quran. The problem is in our country, in the Western countries, that when our constitutions were written, we have freedom of religion, and that was because religion did not impose a threat on the people, but it does today. And this is something which our constitutions, we have a religion which threatens our lives. And the thing is that jihad for women in Islam means they overproduce children. When in the 1970s, when the United Nations told the world to reduce population growth, Islam refused, the Roman Catholic Church refused. Now, that's not going to work unless everyone's in agreement. So what we have today is we have this overpopulation of Muslims in Islamic countries. And so what they do is they export their overpopulation to other countries. And we've got Article 15 of the International Human Rights, which allows them to do this, to change nationality. So this really is questionable because their military strategies, and it's actually the military strategies of Islam, the correct words to say is the strategies of military Islam, but that's only the correct way of saying that. But the thing is that we have a situation like, for example, in Australia, we have this mass immigration of Muslims into the country. They overproduce deliberately because it's the multiplication effect of overpopulation that they will win the numbers in our elections, and they will eventually, it's a long-term strategy they're using, that they will win the vote, and then we will end up being an Islamic country under Sharia law.
All right. So let me jump in again. Yeah. All right. We get it. We get it. And so the bottom line here is that you are in favor of more freedom for women. And so are we at People of Distinction. That is the big message here. More freedom for women. And if we can accomplish that. Now, we only have some minutes left here because, of course, we're always on a constraint, as I mentioned at the beginning, with People of Distinction. So one more question. Possibilities here in our human family future to get out of World War III. If we gave more women more power, more freedom in our world, how would that look if we had a new world with women who were given a lot more freedom than they're given now? What kind of world would that look like that it doesn't look like now, Daisy? And please keep your answer to a minute and a half. We don't have a lot of time. What kind of world would that look like?
Look, I think the problems in this world go beyond that. But what I do point out is that I use the word matriarch because a woman has a better understanding to resolve a lot of these problems in the world. Women would have a better way of doing it. So in that respect, but there are a lot of women who don't have children, and there are some, it's not every woman. But the point is that we do need, the matriarch is the more, is considering the women who are looking at the world, and we have all these problems that we have, and a matriarch is a person who would help resolve all these problems, which they can do, I think, better than a patriarch, but that doesn't rule the men out. I found that the men are still important, and we need the men, but it's just the matriarch is important because that's something which has been overshadowed by too many men.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to end the show with a reflection of my own here, people, as I do on People of Distinction with Al Cole. And when we talk about matriarch, patriarch, as Daisy rightly said, we're not talking about mutually exclusive qualities. We both have those qualities in our everyday lives to exemplary levels. The matriarch, the patriarch. We know that human beings are based on both. When was the last time that you heard about somebody that didn't have a mother and father and still was born into this world? No. Okay. You could say, oh, yeah. There's one example, people. Everybody has a mother. Everybody has a father. We start out that way. And so the matriarch and the patriarch are both needed in our society. It's just that it's gotten skewed a little bit over time, over a lot of time, centuries, where men have taken over probably a little bit too much. And the contentiousness aspect has grown so much that, as you heard Daisy say, we are living in World War III right now. We're just not aware of it, at least publicly. Behind the scenes, people like Daisy and maybe other people who are privy know what's really going on. What's really going on in your heart and soul, people, is very important as well. Even if you can't get out there, as Daisy has, gotten involved with all of the in-playing and even the in-fighting, you can create something within you. Something within your own consciousness, if we want to put it that way, where you accept the human family into your nuclear family, into your little family of mommy, daddy, child, whatever that might be. Include some of the family out there in our human family. The love that is all around, not the hatred, not the contentiousness. We know about that. And we're very good at listing those things in major media. But what about some of the things that you love in your own family? And maybe you love your mother, you love your father, you love your children, you love other people, your best friend. Some of the people that you don't know could be best friends of yours as well. Maybe if you say some sort of prayer for our human family. Maybe if you look out in positive ways and say, this person who I'm blaming for this, blaming for that, whether it's a man or a woman, maybe they have a reason even beyond their own freedom to do things that they're doing. Maybe they are forced by conditions beyond their control. And Daisy was talking about some of those conditions. She's been forced beyond those conditions sometimes, beyond her own control, when she had maybe a gun pointed at her, or maybe many guns pointed at her. She could have been non-existent at that particular point. But she's still in there giving us some information about World War III that's very, very integral to your life, to my life, to everybody's life. So take it seriously, people. And I want you to order this book and all of the books of Daisy Moret, Matriarch and World War III. That's available on Amazon. You'll see many, many other books available on Amazon. And one more time, Daisy, very briefly, give us the name, your author name that your books are under at Amazon.com so we don't miss it. What's the actual name?
Daisy Snow.
Daisy Snow.
Daisy
Okay.
Snow.
All right. Your books are under Daisy Snow.
Yes, that's my pen name.
All right. So go to Amazon and order all of Daisy's books under Daisy Snow. Do that Amazon book search, Daisy Snow, and you'll come up with all of these fascinating books. Thank you, Daisy, for being my special guest today on People of Distinction with Al Cole. It's been a pleasure hearing your journeys through all of this time and what you've come up with Matriarch and World War III particularly. Thank you so much, Daisy, for being my honored guest today on People of Distinction with Al Cole. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Daisy.
Thank you very much. Yes.